Welcome to Stories Behind the Frames, a video series that will expose you to new artists and take you on an artistic journey. I'm your host, Dave Petty, and I'm thrilled to have you join us. Through my years at the Frame Center and my time spent in the South Shore art scene, I've had the opportunity to make many relationships with so many talented artists. Inspired by these connections and a wealth of untold stories, I've decided to share these conversations with you. The hope of Stories Behind the Frames is to show you new artists, the interesting artwork they create, and what a thriving art community we have here on the South Shore. So I've been working with Sean since he opened up Goss Photo Lab. We do a lot of framing for him. He helps us when we have questions on printing. We have a great working relationship. When we decided we wanted to tell these stories and dive deep into the art and the personalities of some of the South Shore's artists, Sean was definitely one of the people we wanted to spotlight. All right, so now we're actually sitting down. Got a couple interruptions along the way, but we're in a customer service business, so you always have to do the right thing for the customers. So we're both used to it. A little delayed, but we've gotten here. We've got a couple pieces. We've got two pieces of yours, one of my favorites, another one of my favorites from the series you had at the Frame Center, and then one of the pieces that
that one
is that you own that's done by somebody else.
Yes.
I'm thinking we go one of yours, the one you like, and wrap it up with one of yours. So
all right.
Let's start with the front of the car. This is one of the favorites of yours, of mine at the beginning. I like a lot of your work, but tell me a little bit about this one. I had people had been at the Frame Center for a long time, and I like it a lot. But I had people look at it, and I just like it because I saw it and I liked it.
Yep.
And I'm like, we have this giant frame. Let's put that on. But I have people look at it all the time, and they think that there's trying to figure out what's going on there. So why don't let's hear it from the source.
Well, it's a Ford.
Yeah. I'm not even a car guy. I know you're a little bit of a car guy, so.
It's a picture that I took, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago.
Yeah.
We were at the car show that they have at Bass Pro Shops on Thursday nights.
Yep.
And it actually worked out where, since it was a white car, it was like the contrast of the day was so strong.
Yep.
That when I took it, everything else was dark to begin with. Mm-hmm. So there's a little bit of Photoshop work when I turned it black and white, but not a whole lot, just to darken the rest of the stuff that didn't catch the sunlight. And it just looked really cool.
Yeah, no, it does.
It's about as simple as you can get for the front of the car, but that's also what makes it really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's very focused.
So it was a white car?
Yep.
Yeah. And I'm not a Photoshop, the whole thing with digital photographs nowadays, is there...
The stuff you can do.
Yeah.
Basically all I did, on the computer end of things is I burned down where the road was a little bit.
Yeah.
It's the asphalt picked up some spots.
Yeah.
And then The sky was like super blue,
Mhm.
and I just took like our cross sliders and dumped them to black.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what I ended up with.
Yeah.
The car was by itself.
It
Like-
gives you know what I have a feel. It has that feel like is it Feinstein?
Feinstein.
The black like with that heavy black.
Yeah, like a super stark.
Yeah.
It just makes it stand out like crazy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like detail within the car. Like if you start like looking at the
Yeah.
car, you can see the fans and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a wicked cool setup, and like the simplicity is what I like about it.
Yeah. And like, did you see when you saw that? Like, was that like in your mind? Like in your mind because you're like at a car show, you know?
Mostly, like I generally don't take a lot of pictures at car shows.
Yeah.
And I just happened to have my camera with me.
Yeah.
And it was sitting there by itself. I didn't take it intending for it to turn into like a black and white shot like that.
Yeah.
But when I started like looking at it on the computer and started
Yeah.
playing with like how the contrast with all the shadows that were in the shot worked,
Mhm.
it just made sense to like dump it to black and white and
Yeah.
pull everything else that wasn't the car down to black.
Yeah. So when you like the day you took that picture, I mean, what do you like? What's the process? So you say you don't usually have the camera with you at a show like that, but if you do, and you're out and you shoot a whole bunch of stuff, and like, do you have like a feeling when you take that picture, like you're like, this is going to be a good shot, or is it more along the lines of like you take a million pictures because you're just hitting a button, and then you're reviewing, and then you're like seeing what direction you can go.
So at something like a car show, well, I generally don't have my camera because everything's very crowded.
Yeah.
And when I was walking by the car, there was no one around it, and it was just like, oh, this could be cool.
Yeah.
With no intention of it being anything other than, oh, this could be cool.
Yeah.
And then later, like looking at it on the computer, I was like, oh, this could actually work out.
Yeah.
And then that's what it turned into.
Yeah. And you have a lot of like, you have a lot of car shots, or like is
From
the
that,
cars like racing? Is that-
racing and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
I photograph a lot of cars in motion.
Yeah.
I'm not the best at shooting cars that are sitting still.
Yeah.
It's not really like my style that I go for.
Yeah.
Occasionally it works out. But
Yeah. And is there people that you like that you appreciate that shoot cars sitting being still?
Oh, definitely.
I mean, that's over my head. You're a photo expert, so
Yeah, one of my friends, Nolan, I actually had him photograph my cars.
Yeah.
Because I don't take pictures of my own cars.
Yeah. Is it Eastman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nolan Eastman, yeah. He's really good at it. He has like a good eye for how a car looks like in a static environment and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
So what is it about a car shot that, like, if it's still, it makes it a better shot?
I think it has to do with like background and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like you have to have like an environment where it would look cool.
Yeah.
And it's almost like almost like an advertising shot.
Yeah. So it has that type of feel.
Yeah, but it has like a little bit of like an edgier editing, like edgier tone to it.
Yeah.
Which like I don't see cars sitting still that way. Like my brain just doesn't process it enough.
Yeah, because you want to be moving fast.
Right. Like I like cars racing. I like watching them move.
Yeah.
Like so.
You like stepping on the gas.
Yeah.
Not so your things about cars is more like the speed and the like what's going on when you're in the car,
Yeah.
opposed to like somebody that might be into like just all right, I have this nice car.
Aesthetically appreciating them.
Yeah.
I like them for what they're made to do.
Yeah.
Which is drive. So
Yeah, gotcha. And you do the videos too. You like on the bikes too, right? Because your cars and bikes.
Yep. I mean, I have some video stuff of like me riding on motorcycles.
Yeah. Was that the GoPro?
Yeah, but that's more just in case something happens. Or
Really?
like, if like someone cut me off and I like wrecked my bike and then there's no proof of it,
Yeah.
That's more what I would have the GoPro for.
Really?
I was never into like vlogging or anything like that.
Yeah. Interesting. And same thing. You couldn't take pictures of bikes like still.
I mean, probably could.
Yeah. I'm just not interested.
Yeah, it's not like, doesn't interest me.
Yeah.
I think like the last bike I bought, I took a picture of it and like sent it to Betancourt, who sold it to me.
Yeah.
But that was about it. I think that might be the only picture other than like a cell phone picture of my motorcycle.
Yeah. Now, do you have people asking you to take those type of pictures that you're not interested in because you're in that world of like cars and bikes?
Sometimes, but generally I just tell them to talk to Nolan.
Yeah.
You know, it's cool. Like he gets to like ride around in a lot of cool cars and meet a lot of cool people because of it. But like the actual act of like trying to position a car and all that just doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah. So what do you of all the stuff that you shoot, like what is it that you like? You know, I mean, obviously weddings and you know, there's certain portraits work that you know that pays, right? But is there like a favorite of yours, or
Well,
you
like
kind of skip all over?
I kind of jump around, but overall, like if it's stuff that I enjoy taking photos of now, is like the portrait series that I had up at Film Center, which is like this one here. And it's a much slower, more creative pace since I'm using like a 4x5 camera. And I also photograph a lot of shows, like concerts with like local bands and stuff like that, which are fun because I'm into the music. It's like high energy and stuff like that, which makes it interesting. They're usually late at night, so I don't have to worry about like childcare. So like on location stuff, because you've done a lot of stuff with for the Globe too. Like I've done some stuff with them and
the fireworks. I didn't know that was the one you did.
The for the Boston Pops and stuff like that, which is a lot of fun. Like the on location stuff is just cool, where it's more of like a documenting an event, but trying to put like an interesting spin on it. That's not just this happened. It like to take it into like a more artsy form than that.
And that's interesting too, because you know when Bill was when we were here the other day and we were talking with Bill, and he was talking about how he likes to really capture people that aren't as much like interest, you know, used to being photographed or like that's just kind of an interesting.
Well, that's how I work with like the people I do for like these projects. Like Vivi has been photographed a lot, so she like knows how to be in front of a camera. It doesn't like intimidate her, but a lot of the people that I photograph have never really done it before. And it's fun because if you get somebody who's into having the picture taken, especially now, you know, there's so many people on Instagram. They're like
selfies,
trying to be a model or a model, or like doing their selfies or something like that. They all have like the look they want. Where if you have someone who's like never really been in front of a camera, you can direct them to get the look that I would want. Versus what they think they want. And like, you know, a lot of people, like, if you tell them to be like serious or, you know, like something like that, they might not feel comfortable looking that way. So they'd be like, oh, that's going to make me ugly. Well, not really. Depends on what you're looking for.
So is portrait work something that you?
That's what I do. That's what I do now. And one, I can schedule it with how crazy everything is, so it makes it really easy. But engaging with the people is more fun and interesting. You know, if I was traveling all over, I'd probably shoot a lot more like landscape and travel type stuff. But I've shot so much around the area here that
you're out of subject matter that you find interesting.
Out of subject matter, or like there's like certain things like I won't take a picture that's going to be better than this one that I already took. You know, and maybe I would, but the effort it would take to do so doesn't feel like genuine at that point. You know, like it's not as inspiring as it was. Just because it's something I did for so long. And I like to like change it up and keep interested in the medium.
So how did you get your whole start as being a photographer? I mean, I know that I know from the business standpoint, it goes back to like, it was Ritz, right?
I worked for Ritz for a while. I mean, it goes back even further than that. Like, my grandmother used to work for Noble's camera, and Brian Noble gave me my first job when I was like 13. Selling cameras, and then I bought a camera from there when I was working there, and it just like sort of like progressively like took off from that point. And then I shot film until 2000s.
Yeah.
And got like my first digital camera, and still continued to shoot film like up through all that anyway.
Yeah.
But making the switch to digital, like from doing weddings like back then, made life a lot easier.
Yeah.
And I also was, like working retail, going to school, had no money, so shooting film, even though it was way cheaper than it is now, it was still like a costly endeavor.
Yeah.
And digital gave me the freedom to like really learn a lot of the stuff like before going to school for it.
Yeah. Where did you go to school for?
Bridgewater State and
Yeah.
that MFA school.
Okay.
Um,
A lot of connections to Bridgewater State.
they're everywhere. It wasn't a university when I went, though.
No.
It was only a college.
But at what point did you start getting paid for taking pictures?
Probably early 2000s.
In any type of particular jobs that those were?
A lot of it when I first like got into it professionally was a lot of like architecture work for like different firms who would be doing like a building contest. Like they would enter these contests where they'd be like graded on like the amount of work they did, and like how good the work was. So I'd go in and like photograph like these huge like office complexes.
Yeah.
And then they do their spread, and if they win, they get some award and some like what the equivalent of a blue check mark would be today.
Yeah.
Like, oh, these guys are awesome because of this. So I did a lot of that sort of stuff for like Stevie Rich and Ellis and a few other buildings. And I'd go around to like each place that they had.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of like corporate architecture. And it was tricky, but it was nice because you kind of did it like on your own time, on your own like schedule, as long as you got it done by the day they needed it. It wasn't a big deal.
Yeah. And now, did that sort of thing pay well, or is that something that was like a side gig to working out of Nobles or Ritz?
I did it alongside of working out of Ritz, mainly because I paid for my own school, so like any money I could get was good money.
Yeah.
But it used to pay well, and now stuff like that doesn't.
Because there's too many people.
Too many people trying to do it. Yeah. And a lot of like the corporate stuff has, they'll either hire someone on staff to do it, or like any place that has 300 offices.
Yeah.
Somebody's a photographer there. So like they usually try and like go within or work within or something like that. And the market for that has just changed dramatically from when photography was not as available ever.
Yeah. So the transition from film to digital kind of flooded the market with
it flooded the market, but it's even more like YouTube and online and like being able to educate yourself without having to jump through a bunch of hoops to do so, or read a lot of books. Like when I first started, it was all about reading books to like learn how to go over like exposure and aperture and stuff like that. And now you can hop on and have 300 different people with YouTube channels tell you how to do it.
Yeah.
So that's changed the market a lot, and it's put a lot of knowledge into regular people's hands, which
that elevates everything though, right?
It elevates everything, but it also sort of like saturates the market.
Yeah.
Which I mean is a good and a bad thing, because there's plenty of information, so anybody who wants to get into it can get into it, but to separate yourself from everybody else makes it more difficult.
Yeah.
Because you have a bunch of people like Peter McKinnon, and he has millions of subscribers and all this sort of stuff, and a bunch of people who idolize him, and then all their work just looks like his work.
Yeah.
So it makes it difficult for people to like find their own way on it.
Yeah. So that must be for you, because like the more people that get into photography, the better for Goss Photo, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But
and I like helping those people. Like one of the nice parts is here we'll work with anybody from someone who like just bought their first camera last week to people who are submitting to shows or shooting professionally, or so we have like a range of customers. We're not like just the pro pros, and we don't want to be intimidating to somebody who's not a pro to be able to come and like share knowledge and get prints and like get good quality work without having to either like fake it till you make it, or feel like they're looked down upon versus like somebody who's been doing it for 20 years. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's a lot of, educating. I mean, even earlier you were, kind of explaining to the guy how to, how you're going to end up having to recrop the photograph,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, there must be a lot of like keeping up on things too, like the iPhones, changing of equipment.
Yeah, and I mean the principles on everything stays the same, which is the nice part.
Yeah.
So like the standard principles of photography haven't changed since the late 1800s.
Yeah.
They're still like
what are those principles to somebody that doesn't know?
So you have ISO, you have shutter speed, and you have aperture.
Yeah.
Just how sensitive the film or the sensor is your ISO.
Yeah.
The shutter speed is how fast the camera is going to click to take the picture, and the aperture is how big the opening of the lens is. Mm-hmm. And those three things make up the picture in 1890 and in 2023.
Yeah.
How the picture's processed now is amazing. Like the cameras can do so much work that the image quality would be phenomenal, even out of like a $700 camera or $500 camera. The image quality is better than we could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And like the image processing or like the AI that they're putting into stuff now.
Yeah.
Leaves a lot of room for error.
Yeah.
But the principle of it has all stayed the same. The hardest part is keeping up with, like this computer system or this file type or all that sort of stuff. It's a little hectic.
Does that now when you see all that stuff coming in and like the AI stuff and the how anyone can take a picture, like does that drive you to want to go back to like an old school to like a film or
I mean it does and it doesn't. We actually have a pretty large film business.
Yeah.
And I think like the simplicity of it is appealing to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Where it's not all like in the palm of your hand and instant. And the same reason people are still buying records.
Yeah.
It has like a certain feel or an aesthetic to it, but I like it because it's a slower pace with the work that I do.
Yeah.
But I'm also using a 4x5 camera that you have to focus and then load the film.
Yeah. And when you look at a finished image, can you tell the difference, or are you?
I'd say like 90% of the time.
Yeah.
On smaller images, it's a little tougher, but like you can see like the grain structure that film produces.
Yeah.
And like the pixelation or the noise that like a digital camera produces is definitely different.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who will recreate film looks in Photoshop or Lightroom. And you can go out and you can buy a preset that'll make your digital photo look like Kodak 400 gold.
Yeah.
They they try and like reproduce what the film looks like.
Yeah, trying to go retro. Yeah.
Right. Retro on modern age, modern retro. Refitting a 67 Mustang with modern stuff. It's the same idea. To get a look that used to be, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. So with all those filters, I mean, obviously you judged the number of shows and you enter shows. I mean, do you feel like from a judging standpoint, for a photo show, then like what are you looking for now? Is it when you see something, does it have to be like edited to a certain degree that to make it even like
I don't think
photograph,
so.
or do you see things and all of a sudden it looks overdone and you're like, well, is this anything that's a talent from the photographer, or is this all the computer that's making this shot?
Well, there's definitely talent on both ends.
Yeah.
So to capture an image as best as you can is like one step.
Yeah.
Editing is like a whole nother skill on top of it. So when I would like judge shows and stuff, people would talk about like, oh, it's digitally altered or stuff like. I never really looked at that. Yeah. Unless it was like a composited image of like a ton of images.
Yeah.
That'd be the only time I'd be like, all right, well, this has to go in like the digitally altered category.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with like maybe a filter, playing with like brightness, contrast, and like your color values, I never really considered that like digitally altered.
Yeah.
And like any art form, the steps if it's a good finished product or a good finished image, I don't really care how we got there.
Yeah.
As long as like the final result is something that's worth looking at.
Yeah.
Because if you're really good on the computer and you can manipulate images to get a certain look, why not?
Yeah.
You know, they used to do it in the darkroom and they do it now on the computer.
Yeah. It's the same. Yeah.
Same concept. We just have more tools available than you did back then.
Interesting.
And they're all instant.
Yeah. And then it's, so obviously you judge a number of shows. You're, probably one of the shows, experts on photography anyway, right?
I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
I've been doing it long enough.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, how long have you been doing it? You're only 39, right?
20 years. Getting paid for it for 20 years. So.
And then, like moving from the car to like this series of portraits.
Mm-hmm.
When you start shooting those, I mean, obviously you don't have like just people lined up in here, one after the next. Like, how are you planning something like that out? Like how the series is going to look as a whole? Or are you just like, I'm just going to take some cool pictures of people and then I'm going to pick my favorites?
Yeah, just kind of wing it. Like this series of pictures. I think I took 5 pictures like that whole thing, and it took a couple hours.
Yeah.
Because working with like the larger format film and stuff, there's room for error. Like the nice part is I have the ability to develop it. And, I have like wholesale accounts with Kodak, so but it's still really expensive to do.
Yeah.
Like each picture ends up being, I'm talking like retail, like $25 every time you click the button. So like if you don't get it right, you're just burning money away.
Yeah.
So like this, it depends on the person.
Yeah.
So like I have a couple where people's faces were painted black and white.
Yeah.
And I think if someone's look like fits that style, I do that. But it's all black and white. It's all tight headshots.
Yeah. So where's that idea come from that you're gonna just make half their face black? And
I was at that was an eye party and I saw face paint and let's try this. That's really that's about what it came down to.
Yeah.
It was like I was trying to come up with something that was interesting and different.
Yeah.
And it actually started with the face paint ones and then got into people whose faces weren't painted.
Yeah.
We did like a little teardrop on her, but that was because she had already smudged her makeup, so we made it more dramatic.
Yeah. Nice.
I think like the burlap that she has on was just something that was kicking around in the back of the studio.
And you just, here, wrap your head.
Yes. Yeah, like I have a couple without it, and then it was just one like, this would look cool, and it picked up like some cool shadows and stuff.
Yeah.
That like really make it sort of like jump out of like all the pictures that we took.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember how many there was from the series when there was at the film center. It was.
I think there were 5.
5 altogether.
6 because there was one on the entrance.
Okay. Yeah.
And like the 6th one, which is like of the series, but not because it's a little further back.
Yeah.
Is one from this night without the burlap, and she like has her arms up and stuff. So it's a different look from the rest of them, but still kind of has that sort of weird vibe to it.
Yeah. And then how do you keep track of all that stuff? Like just
hard drives and hard drives.
Yeah, well, a lot of them.
Yeah.
But I mean, it must be like daunting, right? I mean, you go back into those archives and look in like, all right, well, this is like, I have these 4 photographs of the portraits.
I wish it was that organized.
It took 3 years ago that would fit with these perfectly, or is that?
Like I generally have all the weddings I shoot are incredibly organized because they have to be.
Yeah.
And then there's usually a folder on the hard drive of like Sean's artwork.
Yeah.
And then it all just sort of gets dumped in there by date.
Yeah.
So as long as I know roughly when I took it, I can like find it.
Yeah.
The film stuff is a little bit different where you have like a physical copy from the negative and I have like the digital scans I did. So
if I ever needed to, I could always go all the way back to a physical copy and rescan it and do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's fun. We would stop by Mike Sleeper's place, and he has all they're like the pages, and this is like
Yeah, mine are not that neat for the negatives because
okay.
generally, like once I scan them, they kind of just go in a box. Because I shouldn't have to ever go back to the negative. If I do, that means like bad stuff happened to my computers and hard drives and stuff like that.
But what do you do with the actual negatives?
I just keep them in like an archival box.
Yeah.
I have a couple like those like big Tupperwares with a little like stack in there. There's a big pile of them that still need to be organized.
And what some people like destroy the negatives after.
Some people like don't care. It's very odd. Like we have a lot of people who will like drop off film, get it scanned, and either have us throw the negatives away or like never come pick it up.
Yeah.
Which I mean, it's fine if you want like the digital one, and I think a lot of it is. I'd say 80% of the people shooting film now are people who are shooting it brand new.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the people like professionally who shot it all switched to digital because it made the professional world way easier.
Yeah.
And now it's more of like a hobbyist type thing.
Yeah.
And some of them don't even know what a negative is. So like, you know, we had people like ask us like, oh, like, you know, like, do you want negatives back? What are those? What the picture came initially. And most of the time they don't care or know what to do with it.
Yeah, and are those all now like very small, like that one size when I was like,
Yeah, they're 35 millimeter negatives, so it's an inch by inch and a half. And there's like 4 on a strip or 5 on a strip.
Yeah.
It comes in like a big roll and we chop them down.
Yeah. And that just seems like something that would be cool to, I mean, from a frame, from a standpoint of like framing things and like looking at that.
Yeah, like I want to incorporate some negatives into some frames, but I don't know how to do like a permanent light behind it.
Yeah.
Which could be kind of cool. Like if I took like, let's say like one of these pictures and had the picture, but then had like the negative underneath it.
Yeah.
Somehow lit up so you could see the negative.
Maybe like an LED or something.
Yeah, and then you gotta remember to put batteries in it. You know, like that's the only downside.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that would be like that would have a cool look, right? To see the negative.
I think it'd be cool to like put with it. Especially now where everything is so digital that like a lot of people will assume that it's digital off the rip, or there's some people who shoot film that don't know anything about large format film.
I mean, I guess that would be another cool way too, of like since a piece could be reproduced so many times, like to have the negative included, then it makes it a one,
like a
it makes
one-off.
a one-off. It makes like all of a sudden it has that, I don't know.
I'm giving you like my copy of it versus like the world's copy, which is kind of cool. If someone would want to pay for it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. Oh, that's kind of a cool. Yeah. That's just a different thing. Different thought, different thing.
Mm-hmm.
And are you still entering a lot of shows yourself? I mean, is it like if you were to enter a show, like what would you be going with? Would you be?
It would be portraits right now.
Yeah.
It would be mostly like what I would enter. I wanted to enter North River and South Shore, but then got caught up doing everybody else's entries, so I didn't get to do any. But
well, I mean, there's something that's fun about that too, right? I go to the shows and I like to see my frames, and how we're like actually, helping the work, helping present the work, or and being a part of it. That's like a fun thing. So I mean, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, the nice part is even if I don't get my own work into a show, my work is always usually in the shows.
Yeah.
Same as like the frames. It's like, oh, like well, we produce this print, or like something like that. It's your work is still in there, like supporting the community, regardless of if I was able to get my $15 down and get a picture into the project.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is a cool way to look at stuff and see shows.
There's also a lot of times where people will ask me to judge something, and then like I can't enter anyway.
Yeah.
So when I was jurying a lot of shows, I didn't enter any shows because that would be a little unfair.
Yeah. They usually give you like that one the
put one off to the side or something.
Find the juror.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. And the other thing too is that I wanted to ask you about was about Bill, like in your relationship with Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how did that all come about?
I don't even remember. I've known Bill like since Ritz Camera, like
Yeah.
did stuff for him, or randomly. Bill's a talker, so he'd come in and like, just start, like chatting.
Yeah.
And when we opened our own place, he kept coming by more and more. And in 2016, I really started helping him like catalog and organize all this stuff and helping him with editing. I like set it up on my computer and he uses it because I think he likes the quiet, and also like he gets people come in and visit him here. So like,
he's pictures on the door, right?
right? Yeah, it like keeps him. It keeps him busy, but also like, if he wanted to like edit in my office and shut the door, like no one would bother him. Yeah. Because he gets to talking by accident sometimes. So.
Oh yeah, I've been involved in a couple of conversations.
But like as like anybody who still is social, like will do, it's just like you end up talking and you get started and you go, oh, where'd that last hour go?
Yeah.
And with all like the new stuff that's out there, especially since Bill retired from the Globe and all that, we're running his own website and all that sort of stuff. He doesn't have an office in there anymore, so he doesn't have like a little like retreat to go and work on stuff.
Yeah.
And I think also too for him having tech support right close by is pretty quick. Like, he's not the best with a computer, so.
Now, do you think of him as a kind of a mentor, or like you learn from him, or is he more just like a colleague, or?
He's kind of like a father figure to me, actually. Yeah. Not even so much like in a photography sense, but like with how long I've known him and like how close we work together, he's pretty much.
Yeah, and he's in some of the work that you do for the Globe. Is that been like
mostly driven through him, with the exception of like a couple things that they've like put in that I like sent in.
Yeah.
And then like the pops asked me to come, so I did that. And, I think that got picked up by a different one too. I don't remember if it was there or one of the others.
And you weren't shooting the rides too. Was that for the Globe?
No, there was stuff. I ended up like freelancing a lot of that stuff out.
Yeah.
And it was more since I had been shooting like the concerts and like all this like really high energy stuff. And where it's like such like a pivotal point in time. It was like, I have the ability to capture it.
Yeah.
My shop's not supposed to be open anyway, so I don't have anything to really do. So I went and did that and like documented like all like the uproar that was going on. And I tried to capture it in a way that showed like the intensity and emotion of like everybody that was there. Because we had, like one side of the aisle was all hyped up for one reason, the other side was for another reason, and like when those clashes happen, it's a little crazy.
What did you have to do with all those pictures? Is that something you'll revisit someday, or is that something?
I actually revisited like in 2021. I went through and I'm trying to remember. I know it's on YouTube somewhere, and I sent them to the newspapers. I don't know what they did with them. But I went through to like all the places that like I shot were ones that were published. And I retook the picture at like the same time of day, like 1 year later to the day, to show like there was 10,000 people here fighting. And now it's just empty. It was interesting. And it was kind of cool, and I like matched them up as close as I could. Like, I was walking around with like those pictures, like let's see, this, like, but not remembering like exactly like what focal length did I shoot this at or anything like that. And it made it different because like the focus was different too, where with all the people around, like I was focusing on people. So like like backgrounds were a little blurry, stuff like that. And that also makes like a stark contrast because you go from portraits of chaos to just like an empty like cityscape shot. It was pretty interesting.
It sounds like something that would be kind of almost like a retrospective show to see like those images. Then.
Yeah, and it was like a then and now, but it was it was only a year. But the stark contrast of like the time that was like 1 year ago was really interesting.
It's cool. And you're always thinking they're kind of,
Yeah, and it was like a random, I think like the day before, I was like, oh, this could be kind of cool. So I went and did it.
that's,
What else did we do? Like,
you get tired of being in the store that day.
it was at night anyway.
Yeah.
Because I think most of those shots were taken 9 o'clock and after.
Nightfall.
Yeah.
Stuff that get crazy.
Yeah, but there was like the main like protest that happened before was like peaceful and everything until like it was almost like someone flipped a switch at night. It was really interesting. But I think that was at like 4 in the afternoon when I first got there.
Yeah.
On both days. So.
Yeah. That's interesting. Now, what is like some of the publications that picked up those? Is that is that something that you have a contact to send them to, or is that like?
Yeah, like I have like I have all the emails for like the publishers at the Globe and a couple at the Herald, and I would just email them to them. Whether or not they used them, I'm not quite sure because I'm really bad at checking my emails. So if they email me back and they're like, oh, these went to this, because I don't really like.
They don't pay.
Not really. No, and like the notoriety is kind of cool, but I'm relatively modest on that front.
Yeah.
Really, like having like the publication isn't the be all and end all for me. It's more just to be there and do it. Like I send them to it without like looking for anything.
Yeah.
And depending on like how they're used, sometimes they'll give you money, sometimes they won't.
Yeah. What's the difference? Why would they?
If it's used for like a specific article, or you're asked to do it, it's usually when you get paid for it. If you just send them in stuff, they usually, and they'll ask you if it's okay to publish it. Okay, cool, or
That seems like an interesting, because there seems like there's magazines out there that are these community things, and they're trying to get people to write the articles, and then so it's like almost like a workaround. They don't have to pay anyone to do.
Right. Yeah. And that's like part of like what's changed. Like, I think the Globe only has one staff photographer.
Really.
And everything else is freelance.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's freelance by people who are just like, this could be cool, I'm going to send it into them, or if it's freelance for like a certain article that's being written. Like most of them like aren't employed by the Globe, so they're not handing out W-2s to any of these people. Sometimes the amount of money that they hand them isn't enough to even worry about.
Yeah. That's interesting. Now back to like when in Bill's heyday, how many staff photographers do you think they had on at that point?
Oh, I think they had 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Because they were sending them out to do everything from like, oh, the police are going down here, go see what that's all about. Oh, there's a fire on this road, like go down there and see what you can get. And like Bill started doing all that sort of stuff, and then he moved on to doing like the nightlife, the Boston nightlife and all the fundraisers and like the who's who of like the political game in Boston. Yeah,
he's such the books and all of his stuff is so interesting. Like just to think that like in the books the one he did with Carrie, it's like you see this person and then you see all these other people that they're connected to.
It's
they
wild.
have to take pictures of.
We sell like the Boston Irish book and all those books here.
Yeah.
And just about it's less now that they've been out for a while, but like when they first come out, it's like, oh, I know this person,
Yeah.
my friend's in that book. Someone told me that they were in this book, and I see you have it. Can I buy it? So like it's a huge connection that is from like Duxbury to South Boston. Because a lot of people who lived in South Boston don't live in Duxbury. So, but like the connections around here that like make it into those books are wild. Yeah. And there's people that like, and just the achievements of some of the people in the books. Yeah. It's like, oh, here's this guy, and oh, what does he do? He's a surgeon, but on the weekends he goes and checks on homeless people and makes sure they're all right, like in the middle of the night. And then it gets into like depth with like, oh, when he goes to like wake someone up to see how they're doing, he's shining a flashlight on his face so they don't feel like he's a cop. There's a lot of interesting people in those books, and Bill's done a very good job at capturing them and caring about their story. Yeah. And like that makes a difference. I mean, I just talked to him the other day. Then the next was it's Veterans Appreciation. Is that what? It's Veterans and Supporters or Veterans Appreciation. I don't know working titles. We're not sure yet. But and you're working with him on that as well. Yep. Yeah,
I've helped him with like the last couple books he's done, so Boston Irish and Boston Game Changers.
Yeah.
And then on this one, it's again helping with editing and cataloging. And,
Yeah.
He works with Carol Peggy, who does all the writing.
Yeah.
So-
You like offer opinion, if he's got like 2 shots that are similar, you're like.
I'll either offer opinion or shut down like what he wants to do editing.
Yeah.
He had a thing for a while.
You have opinions?
Oh, that's he was like, oh, well, Billy, you don't want to cut that background out because it
Yeah.
actually makes the picture like dynamic.
Yeah.
You have like an environmental portrait, so why are you going to get rid of the environment?
Yeah.
Especially with some of these metros, and they'll have frames of metals and all
Yeah.
this stuff behind them. That's like, you want to highlight that, but you don't want it to be intrusive. So like, why would you black it out? Because that's like their life story
Yeah.
behind it, whether they read, the 3 paragraphs or not.
That's pretty well. When's your book coming out?
I wish I was organized enough to make a book.
Yeah. You think you will at some point?
Probably. I mean, I think it would be cool to do one of all like the Boston South Shore like music scene that I've been working on. Like that could be really fun to make.
Yeah.
Whether or not I'm making money, I have no idea. But it could be cool either way.
Yeah, we did, Yeah,
We did it over
I'd like to see you do it just because I'd like to see the shots all in one,
Yeah.
to be able to, flip through and see them all in one spot.
Yeah, and I think like doing something like that would be interesting to see in print because most of that stuff is really like social media.
Yeah.
Like I get like pretty excited when like a band is like I have a couple of vinyls coming in that are filled with all the shots that I've taken. I just got a few posters from the record companies and like a CD and a tape. For some reason, they're making tapes.
Yeah, tapes are back.
Tapes are back.
Yeah, we've been on a campaign with like, trying to like show the records, like show that as art, like trying
Absolutely.
to, anything that, I mean, this, anything that's worth framing, like just inspiring people and like, you look at those jackets, that's art,
Yeah.
just like the,
Yeah, and then you have like designers who actually like work pretty hard on that. Like
Yeah.
so like it's again another form of art, whether it's like composited, built or anything. And art in all forms is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, speaking of, art that you like, we got another one over here where we,
so this is like an art and science all in one.
Yeah.
Where you get to be nerdy. So my friend James, he owns a company called F-Stop Cameras. And his other one is Casual Photo File, where he writes about all his cameras and stuff like that. He disassembles these cameras and makes like exploded pictures of them.
yeah,
Painstakingly taking a picture of each piece and then layering it in Photoshop. And I don't know if it's art or patience is a higher part on that one, but it's a lot of work. I really like stuff like this because it sort of like embodies like all the pieces that go into something that's so simple.
Yeah.
You take something apart like a camera, it's like not nearly as simple as you think it is on the outside. A few of them are.
Yeah.
Especially the older the cameras get, the simpler they get.
Yeah.
But all these things that make it work arranged in a way that's like aesthetically pleasing, and it gives you this like modern art vibe.
Yeah. What kind of camera is this?
It's a Nikon F3.
Is that something you've worked with?
I have a couple of them.
Yeah.
It's like in the 35mm world, it's a pretty coveted camera.
Yeah.
It was probably one of Nikon's best cameras before they came out, like the F5 with like full autofocus and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and you have the museum of cameras out front.
Yeah.
Just,
I just collect them.
yeah.
And most of the ones out front work. I shoot with a lot of them. So.
Really?
Yeah. Usually, like the stuff I photograph on film is stuff that I don't want to use the term like I don't care about, but it's not like work.
Yeah.
It's just more like fun stuff. Like I'll grab like one of those cameras. They keep you in the moment, so you're not like taking a picture and like making sure it came out okay. It's like take one of the old cameras and like hang out with family or whatever. You take pictures and you get what you get.
Yeah. But
you're not sitting there like making sure it's cool on the phone or going to post this or send it to somebody. And, hey, look at this. You gotta wait to do that. I wait just like I make any of my customers wait. We do film twice a week, so you know, I'm here twice a week, so it makes it very easy for me to get filming on the right day.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's still like if I'm out for the weekend, like I'm not gonna know if I got any pictures till the next week. And I kind of keep you in the moment, like with the people that are there.
Yeah.
And then knowing how to take a picture on film helps because then you have less crap. But
Do you have them laying around the house? Like, do you have them laying around there? I mean, they have a cool, like, sculpture type of
Yeah.
feel to them.
I do. I don't have nearly as many at home.
Yeah.
Because I don't have big like retail cases full of them.
Yeah.
But like I have them like on my shelf in my office and stuff like that. You know, I have a few of them, and like the ones at home are like the ones that stay there, and I keep filling the fridge.
Same thing. You just grab one.
Grab one,
Pick
throw
one
a
off
film
the
in it.
shelf.
Yeah, like if we're like going somewhere or doing anything like that, I'll just bring it with me. If I feel like carrying a camera. Like, for someone who makes a living on photography, I take surprisingly few pictures compared to like what my customers take.
Okay. Now, what the phone? Do you take a lot of pictures with the phone, or
Yeah, it's always stupid stuff I need to remember later.
Yeah.
That's like the best reminder ever.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. That or just messing around.
Yeah, like but no artistic photo, no iPhoneography.
No, and I think it's just because I've used like full size cameras for so long, like it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
I'll print pictures off my phone, but it's usually it's nothing that's like it's nothing that's like ooh, this is gonna be like a huge thing for some like some show or something like that. Because most of those I take with like intention.
Yeah.
Of like creating a piece of artwork versus like stumbling across it. But for that reason, I carry like a smaller camera now. Like it's a nice camera, but it's small. I have a little Fuji X100V is usually in my bag in case I stumble upon something, which happens every now and again.
Yeah.
I'm usually only here though, so it doesn't happen as often as I should.
Yeah, it's tricky. Yeah, it's tricky. That's a tough thing being in the business of art, right? Kind of.
It consumes you. Like my life is consumed with other people's artwork, which is, it's enriching, which is nice because I get to. I mean, I'm surrounded by cool stuff all day.
Yeah, no, I totally.
But it takes away from. I don't want to say my creative side because I still get to be creative doing what I do, but the like spur of the moment, like, ooh, I'm not here. I'm gonna go to the beach and take photos today. It's like usually I'm here working.
Yeah.
So like, it's still creative, but different creative.
Yeah. Do you get ideas from people's work that you see, or
I do?
You
I don't. Imitation is the best form of flattery.
Yeah.
I do get a lot of like inspo from some people's work, especially people who have traveled.
Yeah.
There's some really nice pictures of Duxbury Bridge, but I've seen them all.
Yeah.
So like
they're running out of ways to take pictures.
I don't feel like I need to run out and take a picture of Duxbury Bridge. It's there's a bunch of them, and there's some people are very good with Duxbury or shoot it every day and you see it in all different types of light. The stuff I find like really interesting now are like the creative portraits or the like modern like street photography type stuff. Or how people are trying to recreate stuff from like old, like, quote unquote masters, like Diana artists. Trying to like recreate like this like vibe or, like that defining moment shot. Yeah. And that's kind of fun.
Now, is there, like, aside from Bill, is there other people that you like kind of look up to in photography?
Photography wise, I mean, like Art Wolf has always been one of my favorite photographers out there. He does a lot of wildlife stuff for like National Geographic and things like that. But I like his portrait work and a lot of his more like abstract, intimate work that he's worked on.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of good photographers out there. There's a few people on Instagram. Like I wish I could remember their names, but like their stuff is incredible. Yeah. And like makes me want to live in Finland.
Yeah. What do you think? Instagram. I mean, are you putting a lot of stuff on Instagram? Or
I'm terrible at it. I've been doing mostly stories now with like the show stuff. Yeah. I never really post too much day in the life stuff. I'm trying to do more and more here. Yeah. And
so you're looking at it more like a tool for
like I'm getting like a lot of engagement on it when I use it, which is really cool. Yeah. The hardest part for me is remembering. like to do it.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great tool for people trying to expand stuff or like get things out there.
Yeah, well, I think from an artist standpoint, right, it's a fantastic tool for people to see a representative amount of their work or to
It
see
is,
all of their
absolutely.
work.
The hardest part, like I think I read something where photos are back on Instagram now, which is nice. You know, like they went to the real thing and like they weren't keeping timelines updated with anything unless it was a reel.
Yeah.
Now I guess photos are starting to make come back in the algorithms.
Yes.
That's what it was designed for.
Yeah.
Which is cool, but like the different mediums, like that's probably out of everything I do the hardest to keep up on.
Yeah.
Or like to learn about because it's different every week too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like Instagram, sneaking on there, looking at people's stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that's, you know,
Yeah, I mean, I spend way more time
Pictures
scrolling than posting, so.
yeah. Is there a lot of photographs that you're printing for customers from, just from Instagram and from?
Usually no, like, I mean, they'll come in and they'll be like, hey, I have this picture, and I'm like, well, what's it on? It's like, well, right now it's on Instagram, well, you gotta email me the actual photo.
Yeah.
Instagram crushes resolution for printing pretty high. But most of the time, I don't get a lot of people trying to print other people's work from Instagram. So, which one we don't do because you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
But usually if it's the person who posted it, they have the original somewhere, whether it's on their phone or if it's on their computer, and they can email it to me.
Yeah, that, or unless you're taking the picture out to send it to them, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's acceptable because it's going to the owners. It's fine.
Cool. Well, I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we wanted to cover. You feel like you talked enough about this piece? Do you have this hanging at home too?
I have a different camera hanging at home actually.
No.
I have one of a Leica M3 that me and James actually did together.
No kidding.
We took apart, and everybody got mad at us for taking apart a Leica.
That's it. You're talking to a guy that doesn't know that much about equipment.
I was like the holy grail of film cameras. And the Leica people are Leica people. They get angry when you mess with their stuff.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, showing us around this space. Letting us sitting in this spot, and I think I'm sure we'll be back. Always fun talking to you, and true expert about photography. And also a artistic mind. Always fun to talk to.
Yep.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave.
See you.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and keep the notifications turned on so you don't miss any of our future episodes. And you can learn more about the Frame